Jesus said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." He shared what's called the Shema, Shema, from the Hebrew faith, about loving the Lord God. But essentially, loving the Lord God includes loving our neighbors as we love ourselves. Now, when we love God, we're in a process, a relationship that is continually in a process of our learning and changing and growing, if it's a real relationship. And the Lord calls us into a relationship of love and learning and changing. And so to love God is to do that. But to love God has to show up in human relationships, loving neighbors. Now, how many of your neighbors are very lovable? Are some more so than others for you? Is there at least one that you would say not so lovable? Well, and in fact, in this day and age, there are more neighbors that are strangers to many of us. So what does it mean to be neighborly, and what does it mean to love a neighbor? Well, one of the things it means came out in the story of the Good Samaritan. When a Samaritan who was not considered, generally speaking, a good neighbor of a Jew, even if that person was many miles away or up close, they were at odds, Samaritans and Jews. They had significant differences and understandings, and they had a history of not being neighborly. So it took effort. It took overcoming the wall, that which got in the way of them being neighborly. Love your neighbor means loving somebody who you have differences with as well as those that are easier to love. Loving your neighbor calls for your heart to become more like the heart of God, who loves us in spite of ourselves. So love is not just loving someone because of how they are, it's loving another because of how you are. So love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's not an easy call. Jesus made it even tougher, I think, and clearer in a way too, when he said, love your enemy. Love that person with whom you are at odds. It's not easy. I think it's going to take that first part, loving God and letting God love us, into a condition of being more loving, but also loving our neighbor calls for positive action. I've heard before one of the best ways to lose an enemy is to turn an enemy into a friend. What could you be doing to do that with a neighbor today? I mean, it may take more than one effort, and it may not be easy. And it's going to take you making an effort to have a clue where in the world this other person's coming from. This neighbor business is not easy. I mean, it's sometimes difficult even if we're not trying to be good neighbors particularly. Or like Robert Frost one time said, something about good fences make good neighbors. But that's not enough according to the gospel. We need more than good fences to be good neighbors. We need to be doing that which reaches out and helps the other, which helps us to understand, which helps bring healing to the other, and therefore also changes us for the better. Loving neighbor, loving enemy, it's something I have to work on, but I need God's help with it, and I need your help with it. I'm in a learning process. How about you? I'm learning to love, and I need to learn to love people who I don't find particularly lovable. Love is an action more than a feeling, you see. But when we take the action, sometimes some feeling changes. When we take the right action, an action that is caring and respectful and can lift up another human being, sometimes then we get to know them better. Sometimes when we partner with another person for some good, we get to know them better. Sometimes when we listen, we hear a story and we realize this person's come through a lot, going through a lot, really is a more remarkable human being than I thought, because before I just thought that person was trouble. So what are you going to do today to learn to love your neighbor? You could learn to care better for a neighbor that's easy to care about. How about one that's harder to care about? What about one who looks significantly different from you? It could be skin tone. It could be that the person's another gender or has other kinds of things to their story that you might not understand or you might find something not easy to accept or approve. But are you going to love your neighbor as you love yourself? God bless you with that. May you experience the love of God and love God back. And may the world see the love of God at work in you with your neighbors.